Welcome to Mental Health Dumpster Fire, a podcast where therapists give their real opinions on mental health, relationships, parenting, and pop culture. Hosted by Courtney Laver, licensed clinical social worker, and Jess Miller, art therapist. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mental Health Dumpster Fire. Follow Courtney on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Laver Listens, and Jess on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Artsy Brain. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and cannot be substituted for therapy. We cannot provide you mental health services via this podcast or social media. We hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to our show. It's Mental Health Dumpster Fire. And today we have another guest. It's Erica Myers. Hello.
Hey, ladies.
Hi. Please tell the audience about yourself.
Yes, so my name is Erica Myers. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor supervisor and a registered play therapist supervisor. And I work in Prospect. I've been here in the Louisville area for a little over 3 years, and I see kids and families primarily.
Love it. Do you have an age range that you love the most?
I really don't. To be honest with you, although my specialty area is kids, here lately I've gotten a lot of referrals for EMDR from adults. And so it's really interesting to kind of see how the treatment milieu, if you will, kind of changes. And so as much as I love working with kids and teens, I mean, it's nice every now and again to just see an adult, you know, for individual sessions. So I like them all.
Yeah, it's nice to have a variety.
Yeah, I do. Probably as young as like maybe 3, 4 would probably be the youngest, and then no top number there.
Mm-hmm. And you have a therapy dog.
I do. You know, my coworker is the best. Mac is my animal-assisted therapy animal, and he is wonderful. You know, I say he's my therapy animal, but maybe he's more my emotional support animal while I do therapy. Yeah. So he's as much a benefit for me as he is the clients.
Yeah.
He's like a boy.
He's the goodest.
He is.
He's the goodest and the most handsomest, too.
He is.
Yeah, he is.
How does that work? So is he kind of just there for extra comfort? Does he do anything in your sessions?
That's actually a great question, Courtney, and Jess knows he sleeps like a boss. Yeah, so my therapy dog, Mac, is a chocolate lab, and if you know anything about chocolate labs, first of all, a chocolate lab is just a clone. It's the same dog in different bodies, and so he has 2 speeds. He's either wild and crazy or passed out.
Yeah.
And so in the playroom, it's funny because of the day, like in the mornings, he's excited to get to work. And when I say excited, it's like a good 5 minutes of him like getting his stuffies, being energetic. And then he's like, all right, I'm exhausted. And then he sleeps for the next like 8 to 10 hours. And then he gets home and he's wild. But yeah, he's really great because in learning about therapy animals and like the temperament, he has a beautiful temperament, and I don't think I ever appreciated that word until I had him. So what I mean by that is I watch other dogs interact with kids, and Mac, like, you could just do anything to him, I think, and he would be fine. It's so cute. He weighs 100 pounds. He's a big boy.
Big boy.
And I have some kids that come in and literally just like launch on him and lay on him, and he'll be dead asleep and he just doesn't move. I mean, he might turn around, give him a little kiss, give him a little lick, acknowledge their presence, his tail start wagging, but he's just so chill. He's so cool. I have several pictures of him where I've had kids that'll take the medical kit and they'll be like, Mac's got to have surgery today. And I'm like, he's got to probably have surgery. And so they'll, fake give him shots and they'll wrap him up, and he just sits there and goes with it. So he's wonderful. I sometimes utilize him in EMDR too. Like if I have somebody that's really dysregulated, he sits there with them, and then I'll say, okay, if you'll just massage him like right, left hand. So he has become a bilateral stimulation form. So
that's great.
Really cool, actually.
It's really cool, all the different ways that I've tried to integrate him in working through fears or anxieties. And then, he's always game for anything too. So.
Oh, I love that.
Gosh.
He's
Pets
a great partner.
Such like a great grounding buddy to have. I feel like we all need therapy dogs or cats, because I have cats and I have clients who are like, can your cat come?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, she would not like being here.
Right.
No.
But I wish that was a thing. That'd be really cool if I could bring my cat.
At home, we have 2 cats, and Mac's best friend is my orange kitty.
Aw.
And she'll groom him. He allows it. Like, he's really good with the cats. But I used to live on a farm, and so I've had goats and chickens and horses. And I think any animal that you can bring into therapy is like, yes. Yeah. It's one thing that I joke about because I'm in private practice now. And I joke about it, but it is sincerely true that I have done a lot of credentials. I've got a lot of training. I'm a nerd. I love school. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that. They care that I have a dog.
Yeah.
And so for reasons of referral, like Mac he's gold. He's wonderful.
I mean, yeah, I would be pretty excited if I found a therapist online that also had a therapy dog.
Me too.
I'd be like, yeah, you're at the top of my list.
Yeah, my therapist has a therapy dog.
There you
Perfect.
go. That's
Yes.
perfect.
It's perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into the equine therapy stuff since you have a farm background?
Just a tiny little bit. And it's
Okay.
really, I used to work with a girl that was an equine therapist. And so we consulted and talked about it because she did a blend of 2 different things. Leslie Cashin was her name, and she's in Lexington now. And so she did a couple of things. She used to work on a farm that offered equine therapy. And when she moved away from that, what she did was she would go to people that had a barn, a horse, and she would do equine therapy using their animals.
Wow.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, I never knew of doing that sort of thing. So I've consulted with someone about equine therapy. I do think if I were to be interested, I would want like my place. I would want a stable with a horse and everything. And horse is a lot of work, a whole lot of work. So I think my horse days are personally over.
Okay.
But I love equine therapy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That was something that I wanted to do in undergrad, was become an equine therapist.
Yeah.
Equine psychotherapist.
Could still do it. What do you mean in undergrad?
I mean, I ran away to Colorado for a little while and I worked on a ranch, and that's what I did there.
Yeah.
Was learn. I was like an apprentice to an equine psychotherapist. But yeah, like you.
What a fun gig.
Oh, it was super cool.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm the kind of person who also would need like my own facility and like equine partners and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would need to have like my own thing set up to do it, but I still really want to do it though.
I mean, you're in Kentucky. Like,
You're
this
in
is the
Kentucky.
place
I
to
know.
do it.
I literally grew up here.
Yeah.
I am a horse girl. Like,
Yes.
I'm your favorite horse girl. That's
Yes.
what I meant.
I love that. Well, the opportunities are still out there, Jess.
I know.
Make it happen.
If I can get someone to pay for like a barn for me, I could find the horses. That's not as hard for me to do.
Yeah.
I know people.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Everything costs money.
Right.
That's annoying.
For real.
Super annoying. Yeah.
I could probably figure it out though.
Yeah. I'm excited for you.
I'll put that on my to-do list of credentials that I need.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to get a therapy dog someday. Someday, it's on my list.
Yeah.
But I need to not do that right now.
Yeah.
I don't know where that sentence was going. But
It's on the to-do list.
it's on the list.
Yeah, it's on the
It's
list.
just at the bottom of the
Yeah.
list. Right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. I do think like starting with a cat or a dog would be much easier than the equine jump.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. There is a therapist. I don't know who they are, but there is a therapist in Louisville that has a therapy cat.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
she
So it
is
is a
Amy
thing.
Rock. I know who it is. Yeah,
Oh,
Amy
yeah.
Rock. I've sent a referral there, and it's a hairless cat. And I hear
I
about
have
this
seen that.
Sphinx cat. I think that's what it is. A Sphinx
Yeah.
cat.
And the cat has like a funny name. I love it.
Yes.
I can't remember what
Oh my
it is.
gosh, Nudicrous.
Yes.
Stop
Ludicrous.
it. That
That's
is.
what it
Is that really what the cat's
Yes.
name is?
I
That is
follow them on
hilarious.
TikTok.
That is
Ludicrous,
so
like, with the
perfect.
therapy cat. Yes.
Because he's hypoallergenic since he doesn't have
Yes.
hair.
Yeah.
That's
I feel like
perfect.
that's the only really way
like-
you could do it. Like,
And no
unless
and-
all of your clients are there for the cat. Like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And no offense to Amy or Nudicrous, but those cats are not the cutest cats.
They're kind
They're
of
cute in their
spooky.
way, right?
Yeah, they're cute in their own
in
way.
their way. Yeah.
Yeah, Nudicrous is having a season right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the spooky season. So
Yeah.
Black cats and naked cats or hairless cats, whatever they're
That's where
called.
it's at. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
When I lived in an apartment, I registered my cat as an emotional support animal.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, like if I'm having a rough day, he is not doing his job, and I will go up to him and I'll be like, be my emotional support. This is your job.
You're failing.
You're not doing your job. That's funny. That's why I got my dog. 6 or 7 years ago when I got Georgia, I was like in a very low place and like I needed to take care of something else so that I could take care of myself.
Yeah.
So I got a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, in that sense, he is my emotional support animal. But every once in a while, I'm like, I'm crying and you're not here with me.
I'm having a breakdown and you're running away.
Right. What are you doing? Yeah, I definitely believe in the power of emotional support animals. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yes. I wanted to ask you how you describe prescriptive play therapy to people. Oh, yes. I have a really hard time. I'm not a registered play therapist, but I use play therapy elements. Mm-hmm. And I have a really hard time explaining it to parents and like other people what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I do it very intuitively.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I feel like prescriptive play therapy is like.
Yeah. So I think, and you guys know, like I'm a nerd, so I'm probably going to maybe do too much explanation. But as a therapist, when I was trained in my master's program, the professors, and I don't know if this is still a part of counselor education. I don't hear it as much as I used to when I was going through my program, which was back whenever literally like Jesus was in the program too, because it's like, I know I'm an older therapist, but
a little dramatic.
In 2004, 20 years ago, when I was doing my program, all of my professors were so hardcore about do not be an eclectic therapist. Like eclectic is a bad word, like so bad. And I remember understanding that, and it was like every therapist, every professor, instructor, like would have this soapbox speech about eclectic. I'm so, and I was always like, that feels so weird to me because I feel like we're learning different theories and I find value in this one and this one and this one. Yeah. And like, maybe I don't love the whole thing, but there's pieces of each one that I can kind of really resonate with and could see the applicability of that. Yeah, and so as I went through my program, I really defined myself originally as a feminist therapist. That was the one that I was most strongly aligned with because I do believe that the personal is political. Mm-hmm. And so like, I believe in, I really wanted to work with women and children too. That was kind of my big, you know, area of advocacy that I wanted to get into. And so I identified as a feminist therapist. And then after I started doing work, I found that I used a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. And I would listen to Courtney's podcast that she did with you all a couple weeks ago. And like the same, like I don't believe in like worksheets, but like I love to sit down and explain to probably every client the cognitive triad. I think that's, there's such quality and value in that discussion, and just being able to like use that intervention and technique in day-to-day life, I think is wonderful. And so I started using a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, but then as I continued my work a few more years, I really reflected on the way that I practice, and I'm really person-centered. I really believe in relationship. And so for me, there were these pieces that as I went along and started doing the work, I'm like, okay, I use this. Then I got into play therapy, and that was shortly after I had graduated. And I love play therapy. And I think that naturally I'm a very playful, silly, kind of fun girl. You guys are shaking your head. Yeah, you've worked with me, I'm really a playful person. And so working with children, I do believe that play is the language of children. I think that sometimes when we're playing and something spontaneous happens, it can be really great to like magnify that from a therapeutic lens. Mm-hmm. And so I finally was like, I'm a play therapist. But then there's theories within play therapy. And so I went to a training with Paris Goodyear Brown, and she is a registered play therapist. She's located in, I believe, around Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. And she is really the therapist that says I'm a prescriptive play therapist. Okay. And everything that she taught just resonated deep with me. Now, I started with the eclectic discussion to say, like, I feel like the difference in those two concepts is that eclectic is like, what am I going to do in session today? I'll do this, this, and this without thinking about it or without knowing about it. Mm-hmm. Prescriptive hits different because it's like I understand the theory. I know why and how I'm using this whenever I do it. So at any point, if my therapy sessions were recorded, if you went through, somebody could be like, why are you doing that? I'd be like, oh, well, I'm doing it because of this, because my client did this and I wanted to integrate this. Yes. And so as much as I integrate I do feel like it's prescriptive because there might be times whenever I'll use bilateral stimulation, EMDR. And then if that's too intense, I might back up and we might, work on the relationship. If there's a thought that gets stopped, I might say, hey, let's look at how your thoughts and feelings and behaviors are connected to that. And so I like to use different theories, and I do that prescriptively. No, that was a long explanation, Jess, but did that answer your question?
No, I really appreciate that, though, because I have such a hard time, I have a hard time putting what I do and my thoughts to words anyways, because I have ADHD, and that neuro connection just doesn't happen for me normally. Yeah. But I really appreciate that explanation, though, of, that eclectic versus a more prescriptive type of thing, and everything that I'm doing in session has a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not just I don't play Uno with your kid for no reason.
Right.
Or I'm trying to think of something that parents are always like, that's weird, why do you do that?
Yeah. Like making slime. I make slime all the time.
Yeah,
Parents what? I'm like, and for me, I don't know that slime is technically play therapy as much as it is a grounding intervention to keep kids active in the discussion.
Yes.
And I even do that with some adults too, because I think sometimes just doing something, and you're an art therapist, I love art therapy because I do believe it's great for expression, but also it's that doing something with someone and seeing what comes from that, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I do a lot of that reflective narration of what kids are doing as they're doing it, and then I also talk about ooh, that made me feel this way, I need to take a deep breath or whatever. A lot of that modeling, narrative modeling.
Yeah.
And parents are like, that's so weird and unnatural, why do you do that? And I was like, it does feel weird for me, but that kid needs someone to do that so that they're like, oh yeah, I can do that too when I feel that way.
Right. And when you say that, what comes up for me too is that relationship building and that being present in the moment, that immediacy too, that is an intervention and a technique that cuts across several different theories. Right. And I always joke whenever I go to a place like I did an op play therapy training in it, and Robert Grant, brilliant, Dr. Grant, brilliant, great training, love it. Love it so much. But sometimes I go to these classes and I think, oh my gosh, maybe I missed the boat. I should have taken a theory, a concept, an idea, tweaked it, changed it a little bit, and then called it something else. Because I feel like a lot of therapists do that. Yeah. And I don't want to dog on anybody, but really, when you look at something we joke. I did a training a couple weeks ago with Terry Kottman, who's the theorist behind Adlerian play therapy. Yeah. And she laughs because one of the things with Adlerian, with Alfred Adler, was these feelings of inferiority, right? And so one of the things that Adlerians always say is, well, we came up with that, but we didn't get credit, which cracks me up. And it is such an Adlerian thing because Adlerian is really rooted in so many theories, because I do think Alfred Adler was brilliant. And so I think people took some of his concepts and incorporated here and there. And so for me, the prescriptive is well, I mean, yeah, you could point out what I did at any point, but you could argue, well, is that Adlerian or is that child-centered? Okay, so you were not very directive, so I'm going to say you're child-centered. Yeah. So when we really get nerdy and look at those theory stuff, there's so much interrelatedness that I think, some of those, they're just quality good stuff, to do in that moment. So you sound prescriptive.
I probably am, and I just didn't have the vocab or the understanding of how to explain that to people, but I'm going to use that word more often.
And I always say because I love metaphor, right? And so I love saying, if my counseling style was a layer cake, the biggest layer on the bottom would be child-centered or person-centered, because I believe in relationships so much. But the next layer on top of that is probably going to be some type of play, because I do work primarily with children. And then the next layer on top of that is probably going to be EMDR. I always like to sprinkle in a little bilateral stimulation, regulation, desensitization. So yeah, I think of it like a layer cake.
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and prescriptive sounds great too, because it sounds and it is, but it's very, the language tells the client this is for you, this is your prescription for play therapy that we're gonna do to help you with your problems.
Exactly. Rarely ever do I get a parent that asks about theory or my orientation. Right. I mean, it's mainly a therapist conversation, right? So the way in which I explain that in client-centered language to my new clients is hey, I'm the type of therapist that I'm not just walking around with a hammer and everything's a nail. Like, I want to have a tool bag, and I want to have different things at different times that I'm like, oh, this requires a screwdriver, and this requires a hammer, and this requires a tape measure, So there's a lot of different things, like you're saying, like, I want to prescribe it specifically for what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of just the whole gist of person-centered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carl Rogers knew what was up.
Right.
Yeah.
Carl Rogers and Carl Jung.
Yes.
Were two of my favorite people to study in school.
Absolutely.
Not your vibe.
No, I'm just
so
saying,
much.
name your kids Carl. They're going to do great things.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Carl's a good name. Never really hear Carl so much anymore either.
No. And you don't hear many good ideas anymore either.
Yeah. That is a true
Name
story.
your child Carl. And give us credit.
Need more Carls in
Name
this
him
world.
Carl, Erica, Courtney, Jess, last name.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a beautiful legacy to carry on.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us? I've been enjoying asking people that lately.
Oh, yeah, that is good. How is this, I'm a fan of the podcast. How has this, it seems like you guys are really committed to it. There's so many times that I see people start something and it just doesn't, what keeps you invested in doing the podcast? What gives you life?
Honestly, yeah.
Courtney, point to each other.
Yeah.
The teamwork and
Makes the dream work.
and the routine of it too has been helpful for me because I hate routine, but I also thrive on routine.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful too. And I've kind of always have wanted to do a podcast because I feel like you could point at something and I could talk about it for an hour.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to be an art historian so bad. It was I could talk about literally any painting you point out to me.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. I'll talk about it. But I had no idea of you can't just talk about random stuff. So what are you going to talk about? And I just could never think of anything that I by myself could talk about.
Yeah.
That people would actually listen to. But then having a co-host it's a conversation. It's not a show. It's not me talking an hour about the Mona Lisa. It's a conversation about stuff that we're passionate about, but also is our career too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Yeah. If I was doing it by myself, I would have given up by now.
Yeah, me too.
I need the accountability partner.
Yeah.
And like she said, the schedule. We're here every Monday, and this is what we do. And then we have the schedule of it needs to be released on this day. I've been late, but
I've been bad too.
In general, it gets released on Thursdays. And so just having somebody else that's no, there's two people now counting on it. It's not just me saying that I want to do it. And especially at the beginning, I have so many ideas, and they're the ideas are fully fledged out, and they're years down the line, this is what it will look like. And then when it's not like that at the beginning, it's hard to keep going.
And it never is like that in the beginning.
It can't be.
Yeah.
You can't just put one episode out and nobody knows who you are and you have thousands of listeners.
Right.
That's just not realistic.
Right.
So having the ideas of I would love it to look like this, and I would love to be able to somehow make some revenue from this podcast and really have people engaging with it and have a community of people that comment and give us topic ideas and things like that. That's not happening right now, but because there's two of us here who both want the same thing, it's easier for me to stick with it and be we'll get there someday. Yeah.
I absolutely love it, and I just want you guys to know that if you ever need a cheerleader and encourager, I'm here for it, because there's a big part of me that's so jealous that you guys have created something so fun. It is definitely by no means something that I should do, but I'm a podcast fan. I listen to podcasts, so I just think it's the coolest thing. And so I'm would probably never even volunteer to be on a podcast, but I knew it would just be a conversation with you guys.
Right, yeah.
And so I keep mentioning Courtney. I should probably say, for the fans of your podcast, I do work with the fabulous Courtney Morgan at Counseling Unconditionally. And so I watched hers, and I went this time and watched no, it wasn't. I thought I went to YouTube. No, I didn't. it was on your all's Instagram that I saw actual clip, and I was like, I said, Courtney, there is no way that I'm at all going to watch my episode because I hate my voice on like film.
That's
but
the hardest
I said,
part.
Yeah, I said I'm just going to go for the conversation and just leave it there and be good with it. So it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is hard to go back and edit sometimes.
Oh my God.
And like I catch myself like twirling my hair. I need to make clips of every time I twirl my hair.
Yeah.
And every time I go like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I have to, editing the episode is the hardest part because I'm
Editing
sitting
out
here
all the blank space.
watching every second of it and being like, why did I make that face? Why does my voice sound like that?
Yeah, I definitely know that like podcast life is not for me. So I get like, it's a very healthy jealousy. Like I love it, and it only makes me like encourage you guys to want to do it more. And maybe in the future I can come and be a guest again. That's what I want to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. I love the pod though.
Honestly, I think the hardest part right now is sharing with people we don't know that we have a podcast.
Yeah.
The
'Cause
promotion.
it still feels weird to be like, oh, I have a podcast.
Yeah, I went to a consultation group yesterday with other therapists that I had never met before, and we were all introducing ourselves, and then after I went, I was like, oh man, I should have said I had a podcast.
You should have said
that would be weird. And then I was like, no, it's not. This is your job now.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So next time.
Yeah, next time. You're gonna get some little cards or a little handout or something. That way people will have, where you can.
I thought about making little stickers with a QR code or something, and just throwing that all over the coffee shops and stuff here.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I'm here for it, and I will spread the news in Prospect. Let me know.
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we need that because we're not good at promoting ourselves.
No, it just feels weird.
Yeah.
It just feels weird.
Well, maybe that's an opportunity that you can use your like friends and professional connections to help you grow that area.
That's the goal. Yeah. Yeah. I've been super happy and surprised by the amount of guests that we've had interested in coming on. So that's exciting. That's
so
encouraging.
fun.
Yeah, a lot of people wanted to be on.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Which is cool because it kind of changes it up
Yeah.
every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, we had some ideas, but is there anything like that you really like to gab about?
I like to gab. Period. End of the sentence. So whatever you want to throw at me, let's do it.
Okay.
I have nothing in particular. I do like random pop culture stuff, but I could probably get us way far away from the mental health discussion by digging into Taylor Swift or Ben and J-Lo. So we'll try to steer clear of that
Not
stuff.
Ben and J-Lo.
Don't get me started. But yeah, whatever topics that you guys want to throw out, I'm game.
Okay. Well, we talked generally about prescriptive play therapy. The other thing that you had written in your little form that we sent you was co-parenting.
Oh yeah.
Would you like to talk about co-parenting?
We can talk about co-parenting. Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's something that comes up a lot as we work with kids.
Yeah.
So even if it's not something that we seek out, it finds us.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting.
Yeah. Interesting is a great word.
Yeah. I was
Just
gonna
leave
say,
it at
it's
that.
probably honestly the hardest part of my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very difficult, and it makes me think very large generalizing thoughts that I know are not true, but I get emotional and then I think things like, why would you have a child with them if you hate them?
Yeah.
It is so funny, Courtney, that you say that. Like, it is so funny that you say that because I have been eating my words so much. You find yourself in situations in which you were formerly so judgmental, and I'm right in the middle of that. Right in the middle of that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know it's not fair. I know it's not true, but sometimes people talk about their co-parents and I'm like, well, what'd you do that for?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that we can go a little PG-13 on your podcast here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Very honestly, I don't know how many times that I said, more in the beginning of my career, like, if you knew that you hated this person so much, like, why did you have sex with them? Like, the judgment, the judgment that came so much. And then, you know, I don't know how many times that I said, like, you know, you've been married to this person for so long. When you choose to have kids, you know, I pulled a Gary Landreth child-centered. If you choose to have kids, you also choose to co-parent. And easier said than done, right? Because now, after, you know, I was married for 13 years, and would have told you that, you know, love of my life, most wonderful, best team ever, best couple. I mean, you know, those things when we're in love that we say, man, I'm just eating those words just big time. It's painful. Yeah. Just, you know, like the things that you would never imagine happen in a relationship. And how so many times I was just like so proud, like, I'm a therapist and we're going to figure this, we're going to communicate. And yeah. And then, you know, the betrayal trauma happens in relationships and I'm like, oh, I hate this person, you know? And so, having to co-parent with someone that you don't like is definitely one of the most challenging experiences of my life thus far.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I apologize to every parent that I've ever thought that about.
Right.
Because I know that it's not fair for me to think that, and it's just me in the moment being frustrated with you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is, I do supervision of interns and students. Then I have a couple of supervisees that are in there, you know, beginning their license. And consistently in supervision groups, I hear the hardest thing that I work with when I work with kids is working with the parents.
Yeah.
And it is a challenge because I think even in situations where the family is living all under one roof and the parents are still together, even sometimes just having two very different people. I mean, I think of a family that I have right now, and mom and dad are so different in their parenting styles, and that's just as challenging as having parents that choose to separate and then can't get on the same page about things.
Yeah.
And I do feel like there's a lot of times in supervision where I have to say, you know, you're doing just work with the kids, but really your work is not going to get you anywhere until you confront the parents with some of the behaviors and the challenges that are going on, because it does make it harder for the kid to live under two different sets of standards. And so, very challenging as a therapist, very challenging personally with having a co-parent.
Yeah. I think the hardest part for me is when it feels like the co-parents are more focused on their conflict than the well-being of their kid, and they want me to help their kid, but then they can't stop talking about the other parent to help their kid. And so it's hard to like shift their mindset of like, your kid is the most important one. You know that logically, but your emotions are so wrapped up in this other person.
That's such a beautiful way to put it, because that is the reality. And that reflects on me so much personally, because I've been single now for 3 years, and for the last year been doing really good, but for the first 2 years of just dealing with that emotional heartbreak and the issues of infidelity that had happened, and real like strong dislike for this person that had been such a major part of my life. And again, I'm a therapist. I specialize in children. I have all these credentials. I'm very smart. There are things that I did and said that I look back now and I'm like, that was not good. That was a bad choice, Erica. But it is hard when you're so emotional about something. And I have a lot of empathy for my families because of what I've gone through. But it's hard if you haven't experienced that, or you don't have, like therapists are in different places. It's very easy to get frustrated in those situations. And I think particularly too, whenever kids' behaviors are at the detriment of what's going on with the co-parents, that's a real challenge. When you're like, hey, I'm advocating and fighting for the kid here. If you can just get it together. Please just stop. But it is hard. It's definitely a balance and a fine line and a challenge for parents.
Yeah. And it's so easy for people who are not in the situation to just say things like, because I do that with teenagers. I find myself wanting to be like, well, when you're 20, you'll think about it differently. And it's like, that's not helpful at all.
It is true. But it is not helpful.
You can't tell that they're you can't tell a 13-year-old that whatever drama just happened doesn't actually matter
Right.
in the moment, because then they're going to be like, well, I quit therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know that that's not true for them. So
Yeah,
I need to be with them where they are. And sometimes it's hard for me to put myself back in that mindset to be like, yeah, the world is really small and life is only 13 years long.
Yeah. But I think it emphasizes that skill of like validating someone's experience, right? And I do think with the co-parenting discussion that sometimes when I ask parents to come in, there is a big chunk of the time that is just really validating their experience to kind of let them know like, hey, I'm on your team.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we, your feelings are valid, but I think if we can all kind of, validate, agree on a certain number of items, then we can use that as a foundation to start to move forward.
Yeah.
But that validating is so necessary to take that time. And I think it's hard for a therapist, depending on where you're at. Sometimes for me, I do still have moments where I'm like, man, I have really worked really hard and set my own feelings aside personally, and now I'm going to ask this person to do it. But then I have to remember, like, it took me months and years of my own therapy, and so I got to like get in there with this situation and fight it out. Yeah. I don't think I have the perfect answer for how to co-parent.
I don't know if anyone does, though.
Yeah.
It's such a complicated,
it's so
multifaceted thing.
Yeah.
It's another layer on top of just the challenges of regular parenting.
And those challenges are enough.
Yeah.
Like they're enough as it is. I think that through my personal experience and then, having done the work for as long as I have, I can say that at this point, and this really comes from conversation that I've had with supervisees, I think now, so I've been in the field for 18 years, and I think just now in the last couple of years, I've gotten really comfortable with confronting things, because I'll sit in that validation for so long, and then there does reach a point, I think, with co-parents, like if that conflict continues, that you have to kind of say, hey, like, and sometimes my confrontation, and I'm straight Appalachian, give it to you, like,
love it.
Yeah. And so that skill, so I do think takes some time to master, but I mean, I've really found myself getting to places to say like, I've listened to you, I've heard you, but you really have to decide now, like, if you're going to continue to argue and fight about everything, all of these, like, everything's going to stay the same. And I don't want to waste any more of your time and money if that's where you're at. I respect it. You have every reason to be hurt by your co-partner. You have every reason not to get along with them. You guys don't agree on anything. We can totally agree to disagree, and we can end our relationship, or we could practice trying new ways of being. But until you decide to make some compromise and move in more towards each other, we're never going to get anywhere. And it is at the detriment of your child's mental health. Like, these things are still going to go on.
Right.
And I know you need time to heal from things, but there has to be pieces that we agree on. And can we start like setting that
course? Yeah. Well, we get a lot of our podcast material from Reddit.
This I know, yeah.
And we were both talking before you got here about how we had just started lurking on the co-parenting subreddit, and oh my goodness,
this good stuff.
The drama.
I love it. See, I love drama as long as it's not my drama.
Right.
Exactly. That's why we're therapists.
Drama. Exactly. Right. It's so true.
And I tried to find things that were like because some of the stuff, there's a huge rant, and then they ask for advice, and I'm like, well, my advice is that you don't do that anymore. Or my advice is that you tell him to stop treating you that way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think there's a pretty clear answer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it might not be as clear. They might not be sharing as much on their Reddit rant as they should or as they want to. So I was trying to find things that were a little more like you could see it both ways. Okay. But also, it's a co-parenting Reddit where people are ranting about their co-parents. So
I love Reddit.
You can't be as biased.
Yeah, fire away, Jess.
So we could do this, and then I forgot. I meant to find some Am I the Asshole ones, because those are always fun.
I do love those.
And I forgot because I got stuck on co-parenting.
Yeah,
Reddit.
I went down a rabbit hole.
This one is keeping toddler out of parent drama. I have been in a custody battle with a high conflict co-parent for 2 years now. Our daughter turned 2 at the end of August, but we were together for 2 years prior to her being born, so I've been dealing with it for a while now. Dealing with it. I'm in the middle of filing motions for violating the respectful communication clause of our agreement, just to clarify that this isn't an active case. The things he sends me through text message are degrading, disrespectful, rude, inappropriate, all specific language I put into our agreement to mitigate later down the road if I need to take him back to court for it. And he signed that agreement. He has her for 3 days and I have her for 4. Within the last 2 weeks, every day she's been with me, she's been saying, "What is mama telling you?" At random times when even nothing is being said, she'll randomly say it. She said it every day, maybe a couple days last week, and said it almost every day this week, but stressed it and repeated it more when she did. Advice on how to approach him, starting to bring her into our conversations, and what I can do to leave her out of drama as much as possible. I don't badmouth about him to her. That's in our agreement as well. She's also 2, and I'm not trying to do any of that right now. It's not my intention to even talk about it, so I don't when I'm with her. It's difficult to deal with because he berates me through text message when I have her, and I just ignore him, try not to let it affect my parenting.
Oh, that poor toddler.
Yeah.
So the toddler told on him.
Yeah, the toddler was saying, a 2-year-old is going around the house with mom saying, "What is mama telling you?" Kids only repeat the things they hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
she's got to
awful.
hear that from somebody.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be hearing that from mom. So I think logically that it's probably coming from dad's house or from maybe like grandma and dad's side or something like that. But
Yeah.
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 It sounds like sounds like whoever posted this is more concerned with the like text messaging, like constantly text messaging and all these hateful things, and worrying that that's going on at the other home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which I guess I've kind of seen that a lot too with kids that have co-parenting situations of like dad talks like this at dad's house and mom talks like this at mom's house, and they don't really talk to each other.
Yeah.
And then kid is like, well, which way am I supposed to talk?
Yeah.
Right.
Most kids just choose to not talk.
Yeah.
They internalize it.
Well, that's like the number one co-parenting advice you hear is don't talk about the other parent with your kid, and don't make your kid like the messenger or the tattletale or whatever between houses. Yeah. And I understand that like you want to know what's going on, but that's like the number one thing they tell you not to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of things come up for me as you read that, and I am a natural, like, devil's advocate, kind of like, what could it be? I think for me, it would depend on how this presented. If both parents were willing, I always love to work with both. I would love to work with both of you. If we need to have individual separate meetings, that's great. And to this, I think it is a female probably that wrote this. So we're saying she. Okay.
They don't disclose, but I'm going to assume.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Giving birth.
Yes, yeah, me too. So I'm going to assume that they were at least female assigned at birth, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if both parents are willing to work, I would love to work with both of them. In this situation, it might be like if mom presented and said she was not willing to work with the dad, I probably would start from a frame of like, what power do you have? So not calling the father in this situation a narcissist, but there are some things that are kind of giving me those red flags, right? If what she is reporting is fully accurate. And so I look at, how can you communicate in a way that might decrease these negative statements being made back and forth? And also, can we decrease the hurt or the power that those words have on you, because obviously it's bothering her.
Yes.
And so I feel like before we can even work on the behavior of the child, we have to work with the parents on their responses and how they get along. So for me, it's like, hey, if we're just in a vacuum talking about the co-parenting situation here, maybe there is an assumption, because if a 2-year-old is saying that, I believe it. I think it's valid, but I also want to ask the question, could there be another interpretation of this behavior? If you don't have a relationship with the baby daddy or anyone in his family, and it sounds like that's the case, I would automatically assume that the child is getting this from somewhere. But also, could it be something else? You know, I don't want to like jump to that conclusion that, oh, the kid's getting asked over and over what mama's saying. And so the kid's repeating it. Like that could be valid, but let's look at what also could be going on, you know? And if that is going on, how can you respond to that with the child? Maybe there's something else you can teach them to say. Maybe you can laugh it off. Maybe you can, you know, there are other opportunities to kind of back away. And I think like, I like to use the word, like, I don't want to add fuel to the fire. It's already a contentious, high conflict situation. Yeah. So how can we just start to kind of quell the fire a little bit, if you will? You know, how can we start communicating and interacting in a way that's neutral? And so that's probably where that would be the first advice that I would start with this person. If I were to post on this Reddit thread, I would just talk about like, hey, how can we just calm this situation down? How can we start communicating more constructively, more effectively, so that the focus is on our co-parenting and our child and not about any individual characteristics or any kind of blame shifting, scapegoating, whatever you want to call that. I'm a therapist. I think communication's everything. And so I think that there's a lot to be figured out just in the way that mom and dad are getting along.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, if he's texting her all of this stuff, like, is that the only form of communication that they have with each other? Because I know that can happen in co-parenting situations where they're like, I will only talk to you via text or email. So maybe, you know, maybe that's the only way he can communicate with her is through text. And maybe he needs something different, or maybe he needs to talk to her face to face, because texting someone how much you hate them is very different than seeing them face to face. And
so much is lost through text, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think about my own personal situation. After we separated, there was a period of probably 9 months where we only talked through text.
Right.
And what I found at the end of that 9 months, when I really like got over my initial heartbreak, and I started thinking, I thought, this really is to the detriment of my daughter, that I don't have a relationship with her father. Kids learn primarily through modeling. I don't want to model this type of relationship, you know. If I can put my stuff to the side, what do I need to do? And so I, you know, sent a text and said, hey, I feel like we can do a better job at co-parenting. Can we talk on the phone? And that was the next right step. And I didn't want to do FaceTime. I didn't want to do it in person. I wanted to talk over the phone. That's what felt the next right safe step for me. I did get emotional on the call, but I went into the call with an agenda to keep us on track. And I did it for myself. I didn't share that agenda, but I wrote it down, like, these are the things we want to talk about, and I'm going to stay focused on these items right here. And I did a lot of self-care that day when he got on the phone. If there was anything that I normally would have been like, is that salt in my wound? Is he trying to say something? Like, I was hyper aware of it, and I really worked really hard to say, I'm not going to follow that rabbit hole. I'm going to come back here to my agenda. If he does say something, I'm going to hear it, and I'm going to assess if it's helpful or not, and then stick to my agenda. And that was really helpful to me, and that has improved the relationship tremendously. And so we attend things together now if we need to. We are not friends. So whenever I talk to parents, like, I'm not asking you to be friends with this person. I'm not asking you guys to be buddies. But we do have to co-parent. There is a relationship that has to happen. And so we text, we talk on the phone. We sometimes send emails if it's a little bit longer. But the communication is so much better. And so I'm always endlessly hopeful whenever I hear high conflict. Trust me, I don't enjoy those referrals. But I'm motivated by them because I'm like, if we can just start heading in the right direction, it's going to make things so much better for the kid.
Right.
What do you say to parents who ask about how to communicate with their child about the divorce or about why their parents don't get along, especially if it's something like because they did something really bad that like children don't necessarily need to know about, but they're asking questions about why don't you get along, and like, what are you gonna do as I get older, and are you both coming to my play, and things like that.
And I would love it first if kids are comfortable to ask those questions. Like, I think that's important for kids, just to be able to ask the questions. So I think that's a good sign already that they're creating an environment where their kids open and honest enough to ask those questions. I always feel like honesty is the best policy, but with that being said, I think we want to be as close to the truth as we can while also being developmentally appropriate. And I do think that kids don't need a majority of the content of what goes on in adult relationships. and they will not understand it even if they do have that content, right? It's just inappropriate and unnecessary. And so I like to use real words, though, as close as honest. Your parent and I decided to separate because we couldn't agree on things, and we feel like it's better for you to be raised in two houses where everybody's happy and healthy. And so something along those lines, sometimes I've even had to say to my own daughter, I know that it's hard for you. I think like validating the child's experience and their emotions and the question, like, and so sometimes to that I'll say, I know that like it's probably really confusing for you, and maybe you think like I know the easy answer, but as you get older you'll start to experience those things differently, and when you have those questions, please come back to me and we'll talk about it. It's the same way. I'm kind of switching gears here along this same question that's coming up for me. So my daughter, Courtney was saying earlier that she's like, we talked about pregnancy, and I'm same, like I've never been pregnant. I have had infertility struggles, and I adopted my daughter from foster care, and I do this same kind of language and discussion with her around her biological parents.
Yeah.
And that conversation has changed and shifted so much each like year or developmental period. Sometimes it'll be a couple months. But, you know, the truth of the matter is that my daughter's biological mother did love her. I don't think she had substance abuse stuff, but she had chronic mental illness. And how do you explain that to a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old? Like you can't. And so I have danced up really close to the truth in a developmentally appropriate way. So I'll like say to her, you know, your mom did love you very much, but she had a lot of stuff going on with her and just couldn't give you all the things that she needed. And so now my daughter's 11 and she has an understanding that her mother was chronically homeless. And so it's been really sweet. This past weekend, we were driving through Louisville, and there were 3 homeless people at an intersection. There was one person like at each corner. And my daughter, I could see her, she immediately, like I felt her get dysregulated, and she was like looking at the homeless people. And like, I love that she's so acutely aware of the needs of people, and it also impacts her personally. Of course it does. Her mom is chronically homeless, you know? And so I said to her, I said, I noticed that when you see homeless people that it really bothers you. And she's like, it does. She hates it. She doesn't want anybody to be homeless. And so I love that she knows the truth, and I wish that I could protect my daughter from everything, but I can't. And I do think by being open and honest, I'm modeling for her, like, I always want you to be open and honest, even when it's hard, you know? And so sometimes I've explained things and been like, I know you might not understand that right now, but like, I'm trying to explain it to you in a way. And I do a lot of like, what other questions do you have? If I say this, like, does that make sense? Is there a piece of that doesn't make sense? Just being willing to talk about it with your kids and being really careful. And with that too, Courtney, getting back to your original question, I think that if you're struggling with co-parenting, like, you should be in your own therapy to help deal with that stuff. Like, there's no way that I could have done this process without my own therapy being a therapist. You know, like I really believe, like, if you're a good therapist, you also go to therapy. And I love my therapist, and there's been lots I've been able to unpack and give to her and let her shoulder, and then condense back to me, this is kind of the right direction that you need to go. So
I could just imagine that's like a huge conflict for people to go through internally, to be like, I want to be honest with my kid, but I also want them to form their own relationship with the other parent, and I don't want to tell them anything without letting the other parent know that I told them, and they probably don't want me to tell them that thing, and then you don't know what the other parent's telling them.
Exactly. And that's what I like to stick just to my own experience, you know, and I have not told my, you know, like the dirty stuff. What I've said to her is, you know, we reached a point where we wanted different things in the relationship. And look, here's the thing, as much as for me, I'd love to throw her dad under the bus, right? Like, I love it. That would be good for me, but it wouldn't be good for her. She does love her dad. They have a good relationship, and I love that for her. You know, like, my daughter having a good relationship with her dad, that's what I want, period, you know? And so it's tough to navigate, but I think it's really necessary. We talk about like developmental appropriateness. I think that's hard for a lay person or a parent, but really like, you know, your kid. I think you kind of know if you can get your stuff out of the way, and that's so hard, but I think if you can get your stuff out of the way, then you can have a conversation with your kid fully focused on what they need, what you want for them, what's healthy, what's right. And there have been things that I've probably said that were inappropriate or borderline inappropriate at times. And I've tried really hard to catch myself and say, yesterday I think I was in a really bad mood, and I might have made some negative comments about your dad, and I'm sure that made you feel bad. I want to say I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
And so taking those opportunities to say, like, I was wrong. I've done that a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so important, though, because you're modeling how to, like, apologize for, like, that conversation, or for saying those things.
Yeah.
And kids don't ever see that, I feel like.
I agree. I agree.
Like, they're like, they don't have adults who apologize to them for saying something that was, like, maybe mean in the moment, or, like, saying something that was kind of, like, out of anger.
Yeah. Or saying something and then later thinking about it.
Yeah.
And being like, oh, I messed up there.
Right.
You know? I think it's a great opportunity to show vulnerability.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's a good way to show kids that adults are humans, not gods, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we make mistakes too.
Yeah.
Most kids don't get that.
Right.
So it's important.
It's a powerful place in the therapy room for that to happen too.
Yeah. Yes.
Big time.
I always try to catch myself if I, like, say or do something in the therapy room that I feel like I might need to apologize for. Nothing, like, I can't think of anything serious. Like, I'm not calling the kid stupid to their face. But, so, like, if I, like, knock over the paint water and it spills everywhere, I'm like, oh, gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And then try to fix the problem or find a way to make the paint water into art or something like that. I don't know. But, like, they just, having more adults that are able to apologize and then problem solve with a kid. Yeah. Rather than just, this is how it goes.
Yeah. I think those opportunities are worth more than gold. Yeah. And, like, I think about not even, like, spilling paint water. Like, I definitely do that all the time. Definitely making a mess in the playroom. But, we try to hold so much information about our client, and there'll be times that, like, I don't remember the child's exact age. Like, I might think they're 10 and they're 8, or what grade they're in, or what their teacher's name is, those sort of things. And kids will look at me because they think, oh, like, this is a person that is my walking medical record. And I'll say, now you're our 5th grade, and they'll be like, no, 4th grade, Erica, and, like, their feelings are hurt. And I'll say, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. Sometimes I do make mistakes, and even taking that little opportunity to expand on it, I think is powerful to say, and thank you so much for correcting me when I'm wrong. I really appreciate that. We have to help each other here,
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about your opinion on this one.
Cool.
It's a short one. It says, is it my responsibility to make sure my son has a good relationship with his dad and his side of the family? Oh. Because our son lives with me, am I supposed to make sure the other side of the family gets updates on our son, or gets pictures of our son, or has our son visit them?
That is a good one. That's a good one. I think that my initial response to that is no. That's my initial response, because I think that if you have a good co-parenting relationship, you can have that question to your co-parent. And ultimately, I do think it's their responsibility, because when you have dissolved the relationship and you're actively co-parenting, really one parent is in charge of their stuff and their household and their side, and the other one for their side, right? And so I think also if the child indicates that there's a problem there, I want to be helpful to the child, right? So, like, for example, if the child comes to me and says, I really wish that my grandma, and they're talking the other side, I really miss her, then I would say, hey, what do we need to do to change that? And that might mean that, maybe one parent is not good with reaching out with their parents for the child. So then if the other co-parent is willing to do that, and it's not a huge deal, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. And so I think it's very individualized. Yeah. I think I would probably start with the parent asking the child, what do you want, and how can I facilitate that? Yeah. And maybe part of the answer is saying, for me, it's like through the summer, I know that 1 week my daughter, she wants to go spend the whole week with her paternal grandparents. And so although I don't engage with them any longer, I make sure that week is a priority as I'm planning for summer activities.
Right.
You know, so that's the piece that I get into it is I don't have a relationship with them necessarily regularly. When my daughter goes there, I will be contacting them because I want to stay in communication with her.
Yeah.
But I always make sure that that's the piece with that relationship that I need to do. I usually plan for the summer, so I know 1 week is I'm going to block that. So it is very individualized, and it's one of those things that, depending on the family, it might be a lot or a little, but I think we should start with, you know, hey, for the most part, no, I'll worry about my side, but let's talk with the child and see what they need and in what ways can I facilitate that happening. Is there something that I should do to talk with their other parent about, hey, do you know this is going on?
Yeah.
And what can I do to help you facilitate that? Because I just want what's best for the child.
Yeah.
That's what I think. What do you guys think? You guys agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think with a lot of co-parenting things, a lot of what gets left out is including the kid in the conversation, right? Which is what you're talking about, is asking the kid, well, what are the things that you need, or what are your thoughts on this, and how can we help you with that? Like that as the starting point. But often with co-parenting with extended family, it's like where am I in this system, and like how am I part of it, and what is my responsibility? And it's like, well, is that even an issue for your kid right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, my daughter, sometimes she'll say, she's at that age where she's like, she'll take a picture and she'll be like, are you going to post that? Are you going to send it? You know, she wants to know. And so I'll say to her, like, do you want me to post it? Because she's not allowed social media. So I'd look, do you want me to post it? Do you have your consent to post it?
Yeah.
And she's like, and then like, who do you want to see it?
Yeah.
And so now what we do, because she has a lot of cousins on that side of the family, and she'll start to name them, and I'll say, okay, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to your aunt on my side. I'm going to send it to your cousin on this side. But now over here on Olivia, I'll send it to your dad and tell him that you want it to send over there, you know? And so she kind of knows that there's a separation there. I do hate that, but that is the situation and we're in. And I'm noticing that I'm honest with her about it. It doesn't bother her at all anymore. Like it's like I'm taking care of it. I'm the authority. She can count on me. And that's all she has to worry about. Like, I'm getting it all to the people that you want it to get to.
Like she knows the procedure.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Kids are pretty flexible.
Kids are so flexible, right?
They're pretty flexible with stuff like that.
Especially when you just frame it as like, yeah, this is what we're doing.
Right.
They're like, okay.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah. There is little to no context in this very short post.
Just that
but
one sentence.
To me, it sounds like this child primarily lives with the poster, and I don't know how involved the son's dad is, but to me, I'm wondering if this poster's getting pressure from the dad's parents to send updates.
Yeah.
And instead of pestering their son, they're pestering the mom, and then
because she's with the kid more,
because she has the kid. So I'm wondering if she's getting that pressure from
and with that scenario, what I might say is one, do you have a relationship with the does it bother you to do that? Would it offend your ex-husband, baby daddy, for you to do that? And if so, then if that's a problem, then I would, with each poster, with each thing, I would send it to the baby dad and say, hey, your son wants you to send this to such and such.
Yeah. And
then you're showing and advocating that, like, you're doing what you can.
Yeah.
Kids need to see that.
Right.
Yeah. I think trying to hand that responsibility back to that side of the family is
exactly.
Is
That's
an okay
co-parenting,
idea.
right?
Yeah.
It is. It's not fun. Nobody says co-parenting's fun.
No.
Like, that's not in the rule book anywhere. And sometimes that needs to be said to parents. Like, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be skipping through Central Park holding hands.
It's not fun. It doesn't always work.
Right.
There will always be some kind of problem.
Yep.
Like, it's not a system that you set up and it works for the rest of the kid's life.
Right.
It's going to need updates and changes.
Regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you inform co-parent about extracurricular activities that completely fall on your time, not theirs? Hi, I enrolled my 3.5-year-old in a 6-week T-ball program at the Y. It's not really a full course. It just has volunteer parents practicing with kids. They're 3.5. They don't really play baseball. They just hit it and run. This is completely on my own time. Do I need to tell co-parent about this? Is this optional? Ideally, I'd like to keep it to myself because kid seems pretty anxious around co-parent already and sharing new information. I just want kid to relax and have fun. One of the main reasons I got him into this program. Our order doesn't have any specific joint decision language around extracurriculars. just a one-liner that both parents have to attend or have the right to attend extracurricular activities. Nothing about being made aware of.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because the poster signed the kid up for T-ball, and it's all on days that the poster has the kid. So do they need to tell the other co-parent that that's even happening?
Yeah. I can't help but for me thinking about being a parent, if my child was signed up for something I didn't know about, that would just be so hurtful.
Yeah, like I personally would want to know.
Yeah, I would definitely want to know.
Yeah, but I know some co-parenting situations, if the other co-parent sounds like they might be more like hands-off, maybe they don't have the kid all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And then I would ask, like, then what is it that you're afraid of? Because if you're totally taking care of all parts of this extracurricular activity, maybe it's just an informing of what's going on, and it could help their relationship because they talk about it. Mm-hmm. What would be the worry? What would be the worst thing that happened? Now, as you're reading, one of the things I heard is that kid is anxious or nervous around the other parent.
Yeah, that's what I would want to dig into.
I would want to dig in. The therapist in me wants to dig into that piece. Like, what is that about? And can we shift and work on that? Because that sounds like the more fruitful goal.
Yeah.
Than just leaving the parent out of an extracurricular activity.
Right. Because if we can get to the root of what's going on there and help the kid with that, then telling co-parent about stuff like this isn't going to be an issue anymore.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right. Well, and the other piece that you read in there too is that they do have an order where it says the parent has a right to extracurricular activities. I think you're skating the language if you're like... Yeah. Because if it's the right to extracurricular activities, they need to know about them.
Right.
In order to have the right. And so I think so one thing that I like to throw out is like, I'm not giving you legal advice, client.
Yeah.
But maybe you should also, to dot your I's and cross your T's, check with your attorney on the legalities of not disclosing that information. Because I would hate for a parent to get, smacked on the wrist for doing something so innocuous as that. So
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like the other parent needs to know. I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like the last one we were talking about. Well, can it be a conversation of, hey, I signed him up for this. He doesn't really want you to come, and it's really not that big of a deal. Like, it's just a fun thing. I'm just letting you know that he's doing it on my days, and you don't have to take him or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So that he knows about it, but you're still kind of... and maybe that's awkward, but maybe it needs to be a conversation of like, he's anxious about you being there. I don't know.
And the kid in this scenario is 3. Like, let's get started with some of this proactive communication stuff to avoid some problems later on in the future. Because you got at least 15 more years that you got to figure this stuff out. And we always say like till 18, but honestly, like when we think about life transitions, it is forever. Like you're connected. You only get, one mama, one dad in this life, so like it's important that you start working on some of these things the sooner the better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because there's so many life events that are still going to happen after they turn 18 that they're going to want both parents there for, or they're going to need help navigating.
Yeah. And the quicker that you can get to that place where it can just be amicable is such a better place for everybody to be.
Yeah.
For your own mental health, for your child's mental health, for all those reasons.
Yep.
I have had that frank discussion with divorced parents before of like, I understand you have an agreement kind of now where you are fine hating each other, but someday there's gonna be an event, a graduation, a wedding, a birth of a child that your kid is gonna want both parents there. Right. What are you gonna do?
Right.
You need
you gotta
to
start figuring it out. Right. And that is like a scale. Like, again, you don't have to be best friends.
Right.
But like you got to kind of work up towards having an amicable relationship where you can talk about things. I talked earlier about like I went 9 months with just like texting my co-parent. And when we finally did talk on the phone, one of the pieces on my agenda was just like, what do I need to know? Like, what are you seeing at your house? What are you hearing? And there were things disclosed that I was like, man, I really wish that I got my shit together a little sooner so that we could, like, there were things that I felt like I had kind of missed or wished that I had knew about timely and could have handled it much better. So definitely, take my missed opportunities as a learning opportunity because there's a lot to work with there.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking too of even in situations where parents aren't parenting their kids because they're adults and they divorce and split, there's still like a level of co-parenting going on.
Absolutely.
Of like with your adult children getting married and having their own kids and moving and stuff like that, where they're going to want both parents to support them or help them or be there. So like if you're not parenting the kids directly in your own home anymore, but you still have kids.
Yes.
Right.
So
and then
like
you're putting the stress on them to be like, where are we going for Thanksgiving? And
like how many Christmases are we doing this year and stuff like that. And that's really tough.
Well, and I think that's a niche population because I do think that adults whose parents were divorced when they were adults, it is problematic. Like, you think about adults when their parents are getting divorced, like all they've ever known in their life is their parents being together. What a shift in life to start experiencing something radically different, that your parents are now two different entities.
Right.
So across the lifespan, this is an important discussion.
Yeah.
That's so tricky too, because the ACEs thing, adverse child experiences, it's like there's 10 events that are like supposed to be like the most traumatic things that your kid could experience before 12, and divorce of the parents is on there. But I also don't like the mindset of like, well, we'll stay together for the kids.
Right.
Because your child knows if it's a toxic environment.
Right. 100%. Yeah. I am not someone that thinks that divorce is necessarily a bad thing at all, but I do identify it as a trauma for children because it is their foundation of parenting, right? But I do think that even though it is a trauma that disruption has happened, if there is domestic violence or unhealthy, like those are also traumas for kids. So you kind of have to look at like, what is the best for our family in this situation? And sometimes divorce is the right answer, but it can be two things at once. It can also be a trauma and the best thing that's ever happened to the family.
Right. I mean, that's, like foster care. Like, you've grown up in this abusive environment. It's still a trauma when you're removed from that environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say like it's kintsugi art because I love kintsugi art. This is Japan. Do you know this art?
Oh, is that the gold pottery?
The gold pottery stuff. Yeah, I always say like I think kintsugi art is the most beautiful metaphor for trauma because it's the Japanese art where they break the porcelain or the ceramic and then they mold it back together with gold so it becomes more valuable with its brokenness.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have one more, and it is just drama.
Woo.
Somebody else's drama.
Yes, and it's
so long as it's
like,
someone else's drama.
kind of mentions co-parenting, but it's really not about them.
It doesn't have to be super relatable.
Yeah,
right.
So it is an "Am I the Asshole" post, and it's titled "Am I the Asshole for Showing Up at My Ex's Wedding in a Pretty Dress?"
I need more information.
My ex and I had a peaceful divorce. We co-parent our 3 children together, and there haven't really been many issues. My ex is getting married to Stephanie. I like Stephanie. She has been great with my kids and she makes my ex happy. My ex invited me to their wedding, and I was happy for him. It was my day with the kids, so it made sense for me to come, and that was his reasoning. When I arrived at the wedding, Stephanie thanked me for dropping the kids off and brushed me off. We had never had any issues before. I explained that I was going to stay for the reception, and she was very upset. I was confused because I assumed she knew that I would be in attendance. It turned out she didn't consider that I would actually accept the invitation. I told her that I was invited, and since I took the 2-hour drive, I would be staying for the entire duration. She didn't like this response. Stephanie asked me to leave, and I stood my ground. She went on to complain about my dress upstaging hers. My ex and former mother-in-law helped to calm her down, and the wedding shortly began. I thought that was the end of it, but later, in private, Stephanie accused me of trying to ruin her special day. She is convinced that I wanted to show off and make the wedding about my divorce. She said it was rude for me not to leave after the bride requested it because it was her special day. I told her that I am not responsible for her insecurities and once again reminded her that I have no interest in stealing my ex back. And then she did later post a link
A link to the dress
to the
she
dress.
wore?
To the
Okay,
dress.
we got to see the dress,
I kind of want
though.
to know.
Yeah.
So I'm planning my wedding.
Oh, yeah.
So any kind of wedding drama stuff is half I'm really into it and I want to know, and half I am just like so horrified and like.
So your partner that you're marrying, does he have any baby mamas that you're inviting?
No.
Okay, great.
Neither of us have our own children.
That's great. Okay,
other
yeah.
than the 2 cats and dogs.
And you co-parent beautifully.
We
Co-parent,
co-parent
okay, great.
our fur babies. I mean, the dog doesn't listen to him, but that's fine.
Right.
She's a mama's girl.
So this is the dress that
my
she wore
goodness.
to her ex's wedding.
I mean, it is pretty.
It's a red dress, too.
It is
The
a
lady in red.
It's a gown.
It's
I
a gown.
mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a
they
gown.
I mean it's listed on Amazon as mermaid bridal gown.
Oh.
But what was
So
the
it is
bride's
red.
dress?
I don't know, but she didn't like this person's dress. So she apparently bought it in red, but it is a wedding dress that just happens to be red.
Okay.
My initial response is that the poster is not the asshole.
Ooh, okay.
And I think that it's because it seems like there were some really missed opportunities for clear communication before the incident happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Stephanie's big day, but she kind of fumbled the ball a little bit. I mean, why would you invite somebody and expect them to not come?
Yeah.
I mean, you sent the invitation, and maybe it was like, hey, I want the kids to have an invitation. I don't know how old the kids are, but maybe she wanted the kids. Like there were a lot of missed opportunities for clear communication in like. Yeah, she brought them 2 hours. Like, that's an important detail here. It's not like it was a local thing and she could have just ran back home.
Right.
I mean, she drove them 2 hours out of the way to attend. There was no issue with, it sounds like, the groom in this situation. So, yeah. And here's the other thing, too. Like, she made a comment that she's not in charge of her esteem. I mean, that dress is stunning, the red dress.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I think if you invite your current partner's ex, I mean, I think it should be expected that they're going to come looking good.
Yeah, I don't think that's unheard of.
It's not unheard of.
Like a very like a fitted red dress is a move.
It's a move.
It's a move.
We see what you've done there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious to know what the bride's dress looked like, if there was like, I don't know, if it was different or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're the asshole either. I think, yeah.
Especially if the context is correct, that they had a good relationship.
Right,
But again,
yeah.
it feels with that context, if you had a good relationship, why would there not have been? Because if I'm in the poster's shoes, I might call and be like, hey, you got me an invitation. Like, I was planning on coming. Is that cool? You know, just again to communicate
Well,
before.
Yeah,
They
to
could
me-
have the poster could have like reached out to clarify, or like the invitation could have been more specific that like we want the kids to be there, but we don't really want you to be there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of bitchy to be like, we want the kids and not you there.
Well, to me, it sounds like a miscommunication between Stephanie and the husband.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think the
I'm
husband
for sure that's
fully
what's
invited his ex-wife
I do
to
too.
come to the wedding, and he told her that she was getting an invitation. Stephanie interpreted that as the kids,
Right.
happening. Yep.
and then he didn't communicate with her that like he expects her to stay for the wedding.
Right.
So I think it's a miscommunication between the new couple
Yes.
that needed to be clarified prior to the wedding.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
in that sense, I don't think it's the poster's fault
Yeah.
for her being upset and for assuming that she accepted an invitation, so she's gonna be at the wedding.
Right, yeah.
However, everybody else thinks this person is the asshole.
Really?
Oh.
They were a little bit
It's the dress, isn't it?
they changed their mind after they saw the dress.
Yeah.
Yeah. This person, the top comment on here says, "You are the asshole. I love when these posts are skewed to be, I didn't do anything wrong." And then you see the dress and it's literally a red wedding dress.
Yeah.
Apparently
I can see how the dress would change some minds. I mean, I get that. I get it. But again, I think she totally knew what she was doing with the dress.
Yeah. And like you said already, it like you invite your ex-wife with the kids to your wedding with your new wife. Yeah, your ex-wife's going to show up looking stunning.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just expected. That
Yeah,
they're gonna.
I would expect that if that were my situation.
And the red dress is
Right.
funny
Probably
because
wouldn't invite
the
her.
red dress is such an iconic thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Just like a rabbit
they're
looking.
hung up on the fact that it's marketed as a wedding dress. Like the listing
fair,
says
that's fair.
bridal gown.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's
So
fair.
it's, I mean, because there's lots of red dresses in the world.
Right.
This is
that
a mermaid
true.
wedding gown that
Yeah.
happens to be red.
And it looks
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's out of stock, so I don't know how much it is, but
Yeah, and it's interesting too because, like, you know, I wonder if it would be the same reaction if it was something more like scandalous and revealing. You know, like and like what's the
Yeah.
context of the wedding too? Was it like a
Yeah,
like
what
a
was the
local
attire?
simple thing? Yeah, what was the attire?
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
lots here to figure out. I get that the dress link would change some opinions on that.
Yeah.
I could see that because that's really ribbing it in.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
Especially if
that's
she
what
has that
people
body. I
are-
mean, wow, that's
Yeah,
really.
I know.
yeah, I don't know. These people are really picking up on like what she didn't post because
Yeah.
the title says, "Am I the asshole for wearing a pretty dress?" And then she goes into like, "Well, I was invited, and then she
Right.
didn't want me there." So this person said, in the post, she mentions the bride calling out how she's dressed, but posts no details of her dress. That's why a lot of people just ask for info. It seems intentionally vague. She's then drip-fed information. Dress was red and lacy, but was it revealing? Was it overly fancy for the setting? Then she posts a screenshot of the dress literally listed as a red wedding dress on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like posting, "Am I the asshole for playing games with my friend while my boyfriend was at work? What kind of games? A card game. Which one? Strip poker."
Right. Fair. Yeah, it's
I
valid.
see the thought process there.
Yes. So they didn't like the way that she posted it. I think maybe there might have been a different outcome if she had been upfront with all of the details
Right.
at the
Right.
beginning. So
Right.
they are offended that she didn't give all the information up front. So now she's the asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some validity to that, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the people commenting are likely not mental health professionals.
Right.
So they're coming at it from a like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if this were my wedding, because I was thinking about that too. It's like, oh, I
Right.
would probably not be feeling super good about that either. But
Yeah. And even outside of the co-parenting discussion, like there are people that inappropriately show up in outlandish outfits at folks' wedding whenever the bride should be the focal point, right?
yeah.
But yeah, she had a little ulterior motive, I think.
yeah,
At least a little bit.
Yeah.
I think she kind of relishes the fact that they're still friends and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Feels a little yucky.
a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, almost every comment on here has an edit that's like, "Never mind, I saw the dress." Like,
Fair.
yeah. Is there anything else you would like to tell the public?
Yeah, anything you want to plug or?
Yeah, I mean, I am currently open for clients. I'm in prospect. As you guys have heard during this podcast episode, my specialty areas are kids, play therapy, EMDR. I do like a challenging client, so not that I'm encouraging high conflict couples to reach out, but I'm also not
Yeah.
scared. I definitely like clients that like a therapist that is like, no nonsense, give it to you. Like, I don't want to waste
Right.
time. Let's get to the bottom of this and figure it out. But you know, me and Mac are in prospect at Counseling Unconditionally, and I would throw out to check out or follow Courtney Morgan, the owner of our
Yeah.
practice. She's got great content, good information, some free therapy is what I call it, is little
Yeah.
helpful parenting
Little
information
tips.
things. So counselingunconditionally.com is where you can find us at.
Yeah, she's a friend of the podcast. She was our first guest.
Yes.
Yep. Do you have any ideas for what people can comment on our YouTube video to encourage them to engage with us?
Sometimes it's silly questions. Sometimes it's related to the content we just talked about.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I would love to hear some comments on if they look at the dress, if they think she's the asshole or not.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in that. And also, like, if there are questions or comments or scenarios of, like, impossible co-parenting situations, I'd be interested in that, too. You know, maybe our own little subreddit in the comments under this. But, yeah, like, what are impossible challenges, difficult things, you know. I like continuing to ponder these
Yeah.
dilemmas.
That's
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Follow us, subscribe, share with your friends. comment those things, and join us again next week. Ooh, bye. Goodbye.